Down. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at the Saturday night pitching, and boy, are we in for another rough ride.
It is going to be a rough ride, like whitewater rafting. You know, I heard about whitewater rafting and they like send you down and you can go on different levels and stuff. Anyway, you guys don't care about that, but that is what we're doing. We're going on the highest level. We're going to get over capsized. That's the word. Yep. Capsized.
Looking into a slate that, well, Clayton Kershaw is here, but he's in the early slate. David Price is here, but he's in the early slate. Joe Gonzalez is here, but he's in the early slate. So we do have some issues here in the night slate. We got Chris Sale, but we do have him going up against the Twins. We'll be talking about him. Jumping right into things, 7:05. It's a game 2 here of the doubleheader. That night one, 7:05. At the moment, Jesse Hahn and Mike Wright going up against each other here in Camden Yards. Neither guy I really want a piece of. I think this game is going to be pretty heavily targeted for offense. Unless something happens with the lineups where maybe a few key guys are resting after the game 1, that maybe makes the pitcher look a little bit more appealing. But overall, I think this one's one I'm staying away from.
Yeah, even with a bunch of unappealing options around this game, I'm still not going to be touching this one in terms of pitchers. The Orioles are sneaky, so even Hahn, obviously you're not looking at Wright, but even Hahn, I don't think they're really even in play for tournaments.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Just in that ballpark in general, those arms, one, I think Azar should make a great stack tomorrow. I think Orioles. One, Hahn's just not powerful enough to get through that lineup. Jumping in the next game here, Twins and White Sox. Irvin Santana take on Chris Sale. Sale, electric start to the season, 6-0, 1.66 ERA. Over under 7, obviously here, it's a nice spot for Sale, big favorite. But if you've been around the DFS world for a long time, you know it seems like the Minnesota Twins are his only kryptonite.
I think in terms of cash, you kind of maybe you don't have to do it as much as a Syndergaard last night or something like that, but I think you really have to take a strong look at him in cash if you are playing cash. And I mean, you were kind of mentioning that to me before. What do you think about that?
One, I'm not quite sure where Chris Sale's ownership is going to be in cash games, because I think you are going to look at, Sale since 2013, an ERA over 5 against Minnesota in about 11 to 12 starts. That's a pretty decent sample size. And they, this lineup 295 average or so. Yes, they have a strikeout rate, but overall, Sale's strikeout rate hasn't been surprising or hasn't been as strong as it was previous years. So it is something that's a concern at that price. If I'm getting him at 60% in cash, I'm not happy with that. I would like to see that number 80 or 90. I think that's the big risk tonight.
Okay. So probably maybe even avoiding cash on this slate, or
by far. I'll play cash in the early games and maybe take my GPP action to late slate. I think that's how I'll approach it, just because I feel zero comfortability even with Sale or any of these arms on tonight's slate.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think you're asking for it playing cash on this slate.
Yeah, unless you can get a good read and you can see if Sale gets, his ownership's going to be higher than really what it should be. You feel okay about it because everyone's on the same boat. On the other side, Irvin Santana, obviously not in a favorable spot to get a win. Not really looking at him. He has some potential, but I think in U.S. Cellular, he's just not really an option taking on this White Sox team.
Yeah, just not a great matchup for him, and obviously going up against someone who obviously has struggled in the past versus the Twins, but I think it's still a place where it's going to be hard for Santana to get a win. So that upside is a little capped.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Next one here, Diamondbacks and Braves, 7.5 over under. Atlanta minus 133 favorites. Shelby Miller, Julio Teheran. Teheran's a guy who I'm giving some consideration for just because his price has dropped. Just 8,500 there on DraftKings, not a bad price tag. 77 here on FanDuel. Obviously we're looking at this Diamondbacks offense, which is pretty powerful. But as we noticed, just only two lefties in that matchup, and
Right.
lefties are his only real problem.
And yeah, and I mean, if he can get past Goldschmidt, I don't really see much resistance to this lineup in terms of power and stuff like that. So he's definitely in play for tournaments. If you're going to roll him out there, I wouldn't necessarily be fully confident, but definitely a guy to keep in mind, especially for your fourth, fifth, sixth, and beyond lineups.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, right now, Diamondbacks middle of the road. I mean, smack dab in the middle, 15th in WOBA against right-handed pitching, 20% strikeout rate. So, Tehran's a guy who's always been solid at home, has had his blowups against lefties, but really Peralta, Lamb, the only two lefties, and obviously Goldschmidt. I mean, he's just an elite hitter.
Mm-hmm.
You get around those guys, and obviously easier said than done, but he should be in for a quality start. And he does have that strikeout upside when he's got everything going.
Right.
Miller, on the other hand, been absolutely dreadful to start the year. When he actually finishes his starts, he's coming back to Atlanta where he pitched last year. This is a bad team going up against him as far as Atlanta goes, but I'm not sure Miller really brings enough juice to the table for me to consider him.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned a few times throughout the pods we've done that I kind of like going after Atlanta every once in a while, but this is not someone you go after Atlanta with in terms of pitchers. So, yeah, I don't think you can really touch him, even at, I mean, reduced on a full slate, but there's a lot of guys in that range that I think I like a little better.
Yeah, I mean, you look specifically at Cologne, 300 more going up against the Padres. Obviously, it's kind of in a similar spot because Shields, a decent pitcher as well, but Cologne, a guy who's gotten the job done, you expect him to do the same. And I just like, price considered, he's just a better option in that range.
Yeah.
Next one here, this one's got big weather concerns. Thunderstorms rolling in throughout the day. 8.5 over under, basically a pick 'em there. Jimmy Nelson versus Brandon Finnegan. Neither a fan of these guys, just because one, it's an 8.5 over under in Great American Ballpark. It's been friendly so far this series. I know the offenses are average to subpar, and then you throw weather on top of it. It's just, what's the point of even looking at these guys?
I mean, without weather concerns, I think more of the offensive players would be intriguing. But yeah, again, in terms of pitchers, that's a tough matchup for Nelson, I think. So I'm probably staying away there.
Yeah,
I mean, even in tournaments, it's kind of tough to see the range of outcomes that land in his favor,
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, overall, I think really, I mean, even on this slate, it's bad, but those two are kind of down at the bottom of the crop.
Right.
I mean, Nelson's a quality arm at times, but overall, I just don't think in that spot you like either of them. Next one here, you got Mariners and Astros, 8.5 over under. Houston, decent sized favorites, -146. Nate Karns versus Dallas Keuchel. Keuchel's a guy usually in this spot here I'd be all over. And obviously giving up max amount of runs over the last three starts. 16 over the last three starts has just been insane and really struggled in Safeco, allowing 5 earned over 6. So the strikeout rate hasn't been there. He's allowed a ton of runs in Minute Maid Park. I know his price is cheap. GPP at the most, just because maybe he figures it out, but I haven't seen anything indicating that he's going to actually do that.
I kind of like it for GPPs. It just seems it's a good matchup. I think Vegas is in his favor quite a bit. The Astros have been their offense has been quality of late, so I think he's got a pretty decent shot at a win here. I don't think he gets shelled by this Mariners team. So, especially on this type of slate, I mean, if he gives up 2 runs and goes 6 innings or so, that might be good enough,
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think now that he's at a price tag, because, I mean, he was over 10K in that same matchup against Seattle. Now he's 2,000 less. So maybe you can now it's less of a risk because you're getting him for $2,000 less. So that is something to consider.
Right.
He just, I mean, usually in this spot, I'd be all over him. But I am a little hesitant. But I am with you. I think GPPs, he still is worth a look.
Yeah, again, on a tournament-only night, you're obviously not looking at him in cash. He's not really a cash arm right now. But, yeah, intriguing for tournaments. Maybe one lineup.
Yeah, and his price difference from site to site is pretty odd because he's the second price guy on FanDuel. So I even think he's more of a DK play now just because that price tag is still too high on FanDuel there.
Right.
On the other side of things, Nate Carnes, as you mentioned, the bats there are really teeing off. Carnes, a guy I don't like because he's a low ground ball rate, doesn't miss a ton of bats, also has a weaker walk rate. So overall, I think that's just a recipe for trouble in Minute Maid against this team who's starting to heat up power-wise.
That Altuve, Springer, Correa starting of the lineup is brutal right now. So it's really tough. I mean, it might average out at some point, but this Altuve guy packs quite the punch for a little guy, huh?
Oh yeah, I mean nine home runs already is just insane. I mean,
yeah, I'm not.
I don't know where it came from.
Yeah, I'm not trying to go at this offense right now.
No, I could tell in your voice you're just yeah. They hit you hard. You were scared.
Yeah, I'm sure there was one night in the past 2 weeks where I just like put a bunch of pitchers against him, and you know.
Well, let's hope it wasn't the Phil Hughes night.
Yeah. Oh man.
Next game here, we got Phillies and Marlins. Jeremy Hellickson versus Tom Kohler. Both these guys average arms at best. Over under of 8. Miami 129 favorites. Kohler's a guy who I've said in the past has never been a huge blow-up guy, but not so far. He's looked a little less kind of safe. Sometimes you relied on him as an SP2 type of guy, but overall hasn't been strong this season, coming off a game where he allowed 8 earned runs, and really hasn't been that big of an upside guy anyway. And I think even against this Phillies team, he's just not really in play for me.
Yeah, I mean, 2 games this year already, he hasn't gotten out of the 3rd inning. So tournaments, probably not. But I don't know. That's tough. I don't think you can do it. Even on this slate, I don't think you can do it.
I mean, we just sums it up every time we just look at this guy and go, well, because of the slate, still no. Like, it's just, that's how you know you're that bad.
There's like a dramatic pause, and then I can't do it.
No. And then Jeremy Hellickson, this Miami team's rolling right now. I'm not a fan of him. I'll be actually looking to target some Miami bats against him. So we're getting to a guy, well, really a game that we like here coming up. So I think this is going to be our focal point of kind of where we surround ourselves as far as pitching, because I know we've been pretty not optimistic about a lot of these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So that game, Mets-Padres here, over under 7, what you like here. Obviously in Petco, Mets are favorites, -143, so you got to like that. Bartolo Colon in a good spot to get a win against a really bad Padres team. Shields, a guy who's a GPP play. I think Shields struggles with left-handed bats is what makes him at a disadvantage here. Obviously, the Padres offense too. But you could see maybe the Mets knocking him around for maybe a little bit here. Not a huge blow-up on his part, but enough to get Colon the win.
Yeah, I like Shields. I do like Colon more, obviously, for the value. I think he's the one guy tonight that you're looking at as a real value at the pitcher position. So not really much of a blow-up factor here. He's been pretty consistent, and he's obviously in the last start he showed pretty big potential for what we thought he was and where we thought he was in his career. So yeah, I'm in on him. Obviously for tournaments and on DraftKings, I think he could be one of your main sort of bases to start building lineup construction.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I'm not playing cash games on DraftKings, but if I was, he would be an automatic lock for me as an SP2. I think his ownership is going to be sky high as it should be. And even on FanDuel as a solo dart, still super cheap down there. So you know what? I'll be all over him. Or he's 8,100, so he's come up a little bit still.
Even on FanDuel, I think he's in play because it's a nice little bump down, so you can invest in the batting order. So, and as we've mentioned, not ugly slate for pitchers, so there's going to be some batting out there, you know.
Last game of the night here, 9:05, Rays and Angels, Jake Odorizzi versus Jared Weaver. Over-under of 8. Tampa's small favorites here, -127. Neither of these offenses really thrive against right-handed pitching. I mean, you look at the Rays, they do strike out a ton, which is something that is notable. You look at the Angels; they don't strike out a ton, so I think that kind of limits Odorizzi. But also, Jared Weaver's just not that guy who I want to put in my lineups.
You're not touching Weaver. Do not put him in your lineup. Don't be the guy that's .03 ownership percentage with Jared Weaver. Don't be that guy. I'm the only one that gets to be that guy here.
I thought those were dummy lineups. That's what I just figured.
But yeah, Odorizzi I think can play in tournaments, but like you mentioned, the upside a little limited.
Yeah, that strikeout rate for the Angels is what's a bit concerning. But overall, we've seen Odorizzi have that strikeout rate at times. A 10% swinging strike percentage, so it is nice from him. If he gets everything rolling, I think he could be a decent option. I think for the price considered, as you mentioned, kind of a GPP option. So definitely a guy who's in play tonight still.
Right.
So wrap things up here. Who do we like?
Nobody. Cologne's all right. I'm okay with Chris Sale, though there are some red flags. And I mean, I think you can throw Keuchel in a tournament. And you liked Terrain, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's probably him and Cologne are probably the guys I feel safest with, which that just tells you everything about this slate. I think those two are the guys I'm comfortable in using. It still won't be not enough comfortability for me in cash, but I think GPP wise, I'll toss them in because I can still build a pretty heavy batted lineup.
Yeah, cross out Brewers, Reds. I mean, pretty much cross out Phillies and Marlins is kind of how I'm looking at it, and then start from there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So that's going to wrap it up with the pitcher nailed down. Check out wfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.